All right, let's jump right in. What if I told you that the secret commander of your lungs' defenses isn't in your chest at all? What if it's actually much, much lower? We're talking about this really surprising, powerful connection deep inside your body that's pretty much rewriting the rules of immunity.
And that's the big question, isn't it? It sounds a little strange, for sure, but there's a growing mountain of evidence suggesting that our gut health could be a huge factor in how well our bodies fight off things like respiratory infections. So let's dig in and see why that is.
Now look, this isn't just some wild theory. These are real-world puzzles that doctors and scientists have been seeing for years. A clear pattern started to emerge. Something happens in the gut, say a round of antibiotics or some kind of stomach bug, and then suddenly the lungs seem way more vulnerable. These observations, well, they were the breadcrumbs that led scientists to a really groundbreaking discovery.
And that discovery, it has a name. We're about to dive into the world of the gut-lung connection, a kind of hidden communication network that's totally changing how we think about our health.
So what on earth is the lung-gut axis? Well, to put it simply, it's this constant conversation that's happening between the trillions of microbes living in your gut and the immune cells that are defending your lungs. And it's a two-way street, you know? It's like a biological superhighway where messages about threats and defenses are flying back and forth, 24/7.
I love this quote because it just nails the whole concept. Your gut isn't just there for digestion. It's the main training ground for your entire immune system. So if the training down in the gut is weak or maybe a little misguided, your immune system's soldiers are going to be totally unprepared when they face a real threat on the battlefield, which in this case is your lungs.
Okay, so how does this training actually work? Let's break down the mechanics of how your gut literally teaches your immune system what to do.
You can really think about this process in 4 key steps. First, it all starts with education happening in the gut. Then, that education gets sent out through long-distance signals. After that, we'll look at what happens when things go wrong, and finally, how we might be able to step in and fix it.
And here's the absolute heart of it. The gut is where your immune system learns to tell the difference between a friend and an enemy. I mean, by constantly dealing with trillions of different microbes, it learns what it should attack and, just as importantly, what it should ignore. It's calibrating its responses for action everywhere else in the body.
So how does the gut actually talk to the lungs? I mean, they're not exactly next-door neighbors, right? Well, it uses these tiny little messengers. Healthy gut bacteria produce compounds called short-chain fatty acids, or SCFAs for short. You can think of them like little text messages sent from the gut's training academy. They travel through your bloodstream to signal immune cells, keep inflammation in check, and ultimately help protect your airway.
But what happens when that training academy goes completely haywire? This is a state called dysbiosis. The gut starts sending out confused, badly trained immune cells. Some of them overreact to harmless things, which causes way too much inflammation. Others just freeze up and fail to fight off the real invaders. And the result? You're much more vulnerable to respiratory infection.
Okay, so this is where we can potentially step in. If the problem is a chaotic training academy, maybe the solution is to send in some experienced trainers to help restore order. And that brings us to probiotics. So what exactly are probiotics? The official definition is super important here. They are live, beneficial microorganisms. And the dose really matters. They have to be given in adequate amounts to actually provide a health benefit. They're basically reinforcements for your gut's microbial team. And their effect isn't just one thing. It's this whole cascade of benefits. This balance mnemonic is a fantastic way to remember it all. They help strengthen the gut barrier. They send out anti-inflammatory signals. They improve that lung-gut communication. And they basically help retrain your immune system for a more controlled, effective response.
Okay, this all sounds pretty great in theory, but what does the actual science say? And what are some of the common myths floating around out there? It's time to get real about the evidence and the clinical reality of using probiotics for your lung health.
So if you look at the data, especially in kids, you see a really clear pattern. Studies show that certain probiotics can reduce how often kids get sick and even shorten how long an illness lasts. But, and this is a big but, the key takeaway from all the research is that the effects are modest, not miraculous. And it is absolutely critical which specific strain of bacteria is being used.
And that brings us to our first major myth. It's so tempting to just grab any old bottle off the shelf, but that's just not how it works. Probiotic effects are incredibly specific. The strain that's been studied to help with digestion is probably not the same one that's been studied for respiratory support. Specificity is everything.
All right, myth number 2. Probiotics are a cure. They're not. Think of them as part of your support team, not the star player. Their role is adjunctive, which just means they help support your body's own defenses, especially when it comes to prevention and recovery. They don't go in there and kill viruses or replace actual medicine.
And finally, the more is better myth. Piling in billions and billions of random bacteria, that's not the goal. The real science is all about precision, getting the right dose of the right strain to the right place to have a specific, targeted effect. It's about being a sniper, not a shot.
So when might they actually be useful? Well, the Recover mnemonic gives us a great practical guide. They seem to be particularly helpful for folks dealing with recurrent infections or when you're taking antibiotics, or really for anyone whose gut microbiome might be under stress and in need of some restoration.
So let's bring all of this together into one final practical takeaway. How should we think about all this new information in our day-to-day lives?
This last analogy, it just makes everything click into place. We so often focus on the branches, the symptoms we can actually see in our lungs. But as we've just seen, the real strength, the foundation of the entire system, lies in the roots, your gut microbiota. You simply cannot have strong, healthy branches if the roots are weak. It's as simple as that.
And that leads us to the single most important message of this entire explainer. If you remember one thing, please let it be this. If you want to support your respiratory health, you have to start by respecting and supporting your gut health. The two are just completely inseparable.
So I'll leave you with this question to think about. Knowing that this powerful gut-lung axis exists, knowing that your gut is the training academy for your immune system, how does that change your approach to staying healthy? It's a pretty fascinating new frontier in understanding how our bodies really work.